Are you lacking confidence right now? Well, it could be because of what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a challenge and some perspectives from my point of view on how I've seen myself get caught in this. And if you stay until the end, I'm going to give you an extra special bonus point, which I think is really going to help you think differently in this way and really build up more confidence. So I just want to be really clear on that. I'm coughing already. In that, I've been guilty of this as well. And this is why I am talking about this. And what I'm talking about is making excuses over being committed on things. And it's quite easy for us to do. Like all of us do it at some point. The thing is, the amount we do it is going to determine, our direction in life. If we come up with more excuses than the amount of commitment to work something out to get to where we want to go, then if you're using more excuses, you're not going to have probably as much of what you want in life and not build as much confidence. Because when you commit to things you want and to yourself, that's when confidence really builds. Now, for me, honestly, I've been guilty of this. It's like things like, oh yeah, I would have joined that, but it was just too much money. Or it was like, yeah, I would have, talked to the girl at the bar, but she looked like busy. Or yeah, I didn't think it was the right time. I had to go get the guys a drink. Classic cheesy example. Or something like, yeah, I would have talked to that person in my workplace and asked them to do what they meant to, but they look really, really busy. And all those kind of things. Or yeah, I would launch that new thing in my business. This is particularly at the start of my business, but it's maybe it won't work. Maybe it's just I don't think the market wants that kind of thing at the moment, and I've got a lot of other focuses on right now. So yeah, I've totally been guilty of this, and this is why I want to call it out, because it didn't help my confidence at all. When you start making excuses, and your brain is very, 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 very good at making excuses to keep you safe and comfortable, that does not build confidence, and that does not build fulfillment in your life. And sometimes we lie to ourselves so well, we convince ourselves. Right. And I've heard this from other people as well. I've heard people say like, yeah, I do want to do this. I just can't afford it right now. Oh yeah, I do want to do that. It's just not the right time right now. Or things like, yeah, just working so busy. Oh, all this kind of crap that comes up. I'm gonna call it out because I have to call it out. I've had to call it out myself. And honestly, only you will know if you're talking rubbish to yourself or not. And if you are, it's not going to build confidence in yourself because you're holding yourself back with these lies. And I'm very passionate about this because I'm here to help you build your self-esteem and confidence, not to be like, oh yeah, your excuses are fine, oh yeah, I guess it wasn't the right time for you to lead that class. I guess it wasn't the right time for you to start that business. No, that's rubbish. There's always excuses can come up. Now I'm going to give a couple of examples, I think, with inspiration. So one of my main mentors in personal growth is a guy called Peter Sage. He was very fortunate to come across him and him to come on my podcast. Now, this guy is incredible, a great self-mastery expert. And he tells a story. He's got plenty of it. So he walks his talk, trust me, and I'll say his example. But he was saying a story about a guy who wanted to get into an event he was at. He wasn't running the event, but he was facilitating it. And the guy was out there and he asked to borrow some money, which, that's pretty resourceful in itself. And basically people were saying no. So then Peter talks to this guy about other ways this guy helps this guy because he sees this guy struggling. And he's not going to give him the money. He wants this guy to develop, which is what Peter does. He's not going to give you the easy route. He wants you to develop. And then he tells this guy to propose some ideas to people to actually start. And this guy goes and then proposes that he's going to coach their families from what he learns from this event. And then 2 or 3 lots of families then given the funding to get into the event. Very resourceful, a lot of commitment, outside of the box thinking. Peter talks about a story where he bought a $5 million penthouse. I believe it was that. And he needed a 10%. I may be slightly getting the story wrong, but you'll get the message from it. And he needed to put like 10% down in the next week. So, and he didn't have anywhere near that. So $500,000. And basically he had no idea how he was going to do it, but he got a bunch of resources, got a load of people, he committed to it and do it. How many of us, most of us, let's be honest, would go, yeah, don't have that kind of money. He really wanted it. It was his dream. I think maybe he got it for a family member, and he just really wanted it. And he was committed. He was committed to living in a beautiful state when he wrongly got sent to prison as well for a disagreement in court. You read the book Inside Track by Peter Sage. It's a great book. And he got put to prison. He was committed to living in a beautiful state. Like, I've never been to prison, and I hope to never go to prison, as I hope you don't either. But how many people, I'd imagine, going into prison and feeling good or committing to feel as good as you can, it's going to be a very difficult thing to do. Yeah, he did it. He mastered it because he's a self-mastery expert. Now, he didn't feel good all the time, of course not, but he committed to it. And and another example, one of my other mentors, Joseph McClendon, he was on the street. He was homeless. He's a multi-millionaire now, and he's like one of the best high-performance coaches in the world. But he was living on the street, and he got a book called Think and Grow Rich, one of my favorite books in personal growth. Definitely recommend that one as well if you've not read it or listened to it. Both of these books I mentioned are all audio books as well. I like to listen to stuff on the go. And he committed to doing everything in the book and then got himself off the street. And those are some extreme examples. So a little thing comes up when you want it, and maybe there's a little bit of a stretch in the cost for it, but you do want it. Why do you need to make excuses when there's those kind of examples in the world? You know, there's people out there who have committed to living an amazing life, and they've had accidents that's, you know, caused them to maybe be paralyzed. People born without limbs, people had some of the most traumatic things happen to them. And you can find examples out there of people who committed to living in a beautiful state, and they're very confident people because they've committed to themselves. So why can't you commit to yourself over the smallest thing? That's what I want to say, because I've been guilty of it, and that's why I'm talking about it today as well. It's almost never a lack of resources. It's a lack of resourcefulness. If you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. And I'll use an example. People want a house, which is fine. It's great. Now, from my personal view, my personal growth is going to pay me a lot more back. That's why I don't buy a house or anything until, you know, I'm at that right capital. I've got that right amount of money, because I think your growth is more important than having, we won't go into that anyway, but people will find a way to buy a house when they don't, like, say, for example, a house is £250,000 or dollars, which, I don't know, won't go into rates and stuff like that, whether that's high or low, depends where you live in the country or what country you live in. Let's say it's that. People find a way to buy them. It's like you go to the bank, you get a mortgage, and that's like seen as normal behavior. Yet we don't find a way to fund our own growth most of the time. It's like, oh, it's $1,000. Oh, that's a lot of money to invest in yourself, right? So it's almost never a lack of, if you wanted to find a way, you would find it. Think about it. If someone you loved, now it's of course, it's actually if you do want something. If you don't want something, you don't need to get resourceful, right? Okay. But let's think about it. If you had someone who was you loved, and you needed to pay for an operation for them, and it was like kind of a life or death thing, in an extreme example, would you be like, yeah, just don't have that kind of money? Or would you do everything in your power to find it? You would do everything in your power to find it because you have a strong drive there. Yet the smallest obstacles, we come up with excuses. And I don't necessarily mean the monetary challenges. I mean, like, small things just coming out of our comfort zone, because our brain's designed to keep us comfortable. It's not a lack of resources. It's a lack of resourcefulness. And when you can get more and more resourceful, I've had this recently. I had a few setbacks, right? In business, just being transparent with you, and a couple of other things. And I'm going into a high-end thing soon. And I was resourceful to find a way to get into it still, right? Because I'm committed to myself, because I want to provide more value by getting this. Yet people will make the smallest excuses of like, oh, I can't do that, I can't do this. And I've heard it too many times. And it's coming from a place of love here. I really am so strong about this. You will not increase the quality of your life if you keep coming up with excuses when you want things for reasons not doing them. That's your brain getting in the way to try and keep you safe, but it doesn't let you grow when it gets in the way. So I want you to think about that. It wants you to be comfortable, but it's not going to build confidence within yourself. Now, how is it helping you by living comfortably all the time? Now and then, of course, you probably are uncomfortable, but if you're holding yourself back from the things you want because you're getting a little uncomfortable, that's not going to build a good quality of life. All right. Now, obviously, you've got to build your emotional muscle with it. You've got to, really reflect on your feeling, because the more uncomfortable you get, the more you've really got to build a relationship with yourself and work through some of these feelings. But I want to ask you, how's it helping you by living in a comfort zone and coming out of excuses for why you can't do things, so you can't jump into things? If you're like me, it knocked my confidence dramatically in things, and I didn't even realize, in things like in my social situations and dating situations and career and business and all sorts. So let's go into some practical steps, as always, as I like to talk about. The first thing, the classic Johnny Pardo, number one thing I always ask people: what do you want? Right? I'm going to repeat this again and again and again, because we live in a world where people look at what they don't want, and that's the problem, because it holds us back. Like, oh, I don't want. If I do that, oh, it could be. Obviously, have a plan in place, but I could look stupid. Oh, it might be a little bit of a burden, like financially. It might be. Now, obviously, again, come back to a plan and make sure it logically makes sense in some kind of way, even if a bit. What if I go and talk to them and they don't like me? Like, not looking at what you don't want. You got to look at what you want. What is it you want? Is it building a business? Is it building a career? Is it finding a relationship? What is it? What is it you want? Right. The second one, how much do you really want it, and why? There's a cliche in the personal growth world, but it's so key. Why do you want it? Why do you want it? Like, why do you want it? And look on both, what's it going to give you? And then what's it going to cost you if you don't do it? Maybe you're going to remain miserable or unfulfilled in what you're doing at the moment on the downside. But maybe if you do it, it's going to give you so much joy and freedom and be able to communicate things. So why do you want it? How much do you want it? Because that's really going to get your heart and mind aligned when you can start connecting some of those feelings. The next question, and I suggest writing this down on paper when you're able to do so. You might be on the move. I would strongly recommend you don't just listen to this and then go away, because if you just listen to things and you don't take action, your life's not going to change as good as it could do. And I like to keep these exercises short and simple. The third one, what's stopping you? Like, what is stopping you? And then just write down anything. You might write down things like, you can write down the rubbish as well. Just write down anything that comes to mind. And then the next step, we'll go into how we divide your excuses and things like that. But write down, like, if you say you wanted, what you really wanted to do was find a relationship, but maybe you're writing down things like, lack of time, which is BS. Just being transparent with you, that's a lie. You want to start a business, lack of time, again, BS. But just write down anything. Lack of information, again, complete BS with this day and age. So just write down all these things. Now, there might be one or two things right now you're getting a little bit like uncomfortable, but again, we want to get a little bit uncomfortable so we move through this. Okay, right. And some people are like, well, it is because this and this. Okay, that's fine. If that's your story and you want to stay stuck there, that's fine. But if you're listening to me right now, I imagine you're not one of those kind of people who get stuck in their own story that holds them back. Right. So what are all the reasons? Don't matter about analyzing if they're rubbish. Obviously, I was saying those ones are rubbish because they are. But write down all the reasons that's stopping you from moving forward towards that thing right now. Time, money, whatever it is. Got a lot on. Write down them all. Okay. And now I want you to look at those things and say, are they really true? Right. And just be really honest with yourself. Lack of time. Yeah. I mean, I guess you don't have 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. Right. Okay. This sounds harsh, but Like, yeah, I do appreciate people who've got different priorities. Could you find an extra 30 minutes in a day if you needed to, even 15 if you really cut the time? Yes, of course you could. I don't know what your situation is, but you could, right? I've seen like single mums who've got like 2, 3 kids, like start businesses and flourish, right? And they're working a job, like, you know, they've done it, right? They're amazing, by the way. So much credit to parents as well, like how they juggle this stuff. I'm not a parent, but it's amazing. So like, how much of these are really like, honestly, are you just lying to yourself? And it's okay. Your brain's trying to keep you comfortable. Again, you're just going to circle it. It's just creating this awareness right now. And then the fifth one, how can you be more resourceful? Just ask yourself, how can I be more resourceful to make this happen? How can I find more time? How can I find more money? Like time, for example, like I said, 15, 30 minutes extra a day. How do you find that? Money. There's many options: PayPal credit, loans, credit cards. What can you do? You could invest something and then pay tiny bits off each month. You know, we've got a phone bill, we've got like flat bills, we've got all these things and we have to pay them. Why not pay a bill to yourself each month? Right. And again, it's got to be right for you. What's another one? We said time, we said money. How can you be more resourceful of those things? Maybe you're struggling socially and you're like, well, it's just really difficult here. Well, could you look at like meetup groups? Could you look at opportunities like locally? Could you join an online forum? What could you do to build your social skills a bit more? Could you find a book? Could you find a mentor who's going to help you with social confidence? We're not stuck with ideas and opportunities in this day and age. And I've talked about money, but there's a lot of free stuff out there as well. Like, there is so much on how to start a business, growing your career, find a relationship. And of course, like there's people selling the higher stuff, but to get started, like obviously to work with me is going to cost you a lot more than personally than it is to listen to a podcast. But there is enough like free stuff out there for you to be like getting started at least and being resourceful. Now, obviously, if you want to shortcut that and not use a whole load of time, that's why you'd work with someone. So ask yourself, how can you be more resourceful? Okay. Now, just before I get onto the final point, obviously you can see how committed on this one I am to you, because I know when I commit to myself rather than making excuses, it has transformed my life and built my confidence. And that's what I'm sharing with you today. Just before I get on the final point now, I want to appreciate you for being here. And if you want to come and hang out with me more, my handle is at johnny.pardo on Instagram. You can find me there. So come and hang out with me on there. Look forward to speaking with you there. Now, my final point is a really good one. Well, obviously, I speak so for myself. So this is thinking about how, and yeah, it wasn't originally my idea, but like in personal growth, we kind of get ideas and inspiration from other people. That's usually how it works. Basically, think of your challenge from another person's point of view. So imagine you're not you for a minute. You write down your problems, your goal, and then the challenges you're having. Use the word challenge rather than problem. And then think like how a genius would solve it. Like imagine you got like someone like Albert Einstein or Newton or someone who's like super clever from the past. Maybe like a prime minister or president that you admire or someone like that. Maybe it's don't even have to be a real person. They could be like, I'm a massive fan of Harvey Specter of Suits, really charismatic lawyer, problem solver, crushes any challenge. Like I thought of the ways he would solve things. So just write down ideas that they would think. Imagine you're them for a minute. It's quite a fun little exercise, a little bit crazy, but I am. But anyway, you write down how they may solve that challenge. Okay. And then that's going to give you a different perspective of thinking. So that's what I've got for you today. Once again, if you want to come and hang out with me on Instagram, my handle is at johnny.pardo. I appreciate you for being here. You're improving other people's lives by being the best you. And remember, you're in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.